Ronnie from Cookeville, Tennessee. With all the driving you had to do in the territory days, how often did you have to buy a vehicle? Would you usually purchase a new car or try and find a low mileage vehicle, knowing that you'd soon wear out either one? I understand some territories like Bill Watts, the travel was horrible, but others like Knoxville, you'd be home that night. I've always wondered how the boys survived with all the driving demands and the sometimes low payoffs. So how many cars did you get through, and where would you get them from?
Oh, I've probably gone through 30 cars. Of course, back in the day, you would do 100,000 miles on your car after a year and a half was nothing. I mean, you try not to drive your car no more than normal, but you would have to. And I've known some guys, they would buy these 10-year-old cars and they were like mechanically minded anyway, and they do their own work on them. And they would put them out there and do the miles. So if they put miles on them, it didn't matter because that's what they had bought it to do. But if you buy a new car, I mean, you're gonna and if you drive in some of these places like say Louisiana, 100 I say 100,000 miles. That's 2,000 miles per week almost. Sometimes in Louisiana, you're putting on almost 3,000 miles a week if you drove that car every day. And the cars are not going to, I knew some guys who used to change their oil every 2 weeks because they would have all this mileage on it, and it was just brutal. Sometimes you would leave at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and get back at 3 o'clock in the morning. So you're gone, I don't know, almost 20 hours or whatever that adds up to. You was gone. But most guys, they got in a little group of 3 or 4 of them, and they would alternate driving cars. And yeah, it was brutal. And sometimes the payoffs did not match the trip. And that's when guys, they're riding along and saying, bullshit, I'm not doing this no more. And they would start making the calls, and they would call around and get another place to go, and they'd leave. Because the turnover rate in territories like Louisiana, uh, say Florida, Memphis, it was very high because guys just, guys just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. But of course, I was there when the territory was pretty good, the money was pretty good, so I could get through it. But yeah, some of those places were brutal. I mean, brutal, brutal. When you go from the middle of Louisiana all the way up to Oklahoma, almost to Kansas, that's quite a trip, buddy. Quite a trip. And a lot of guys didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. And I will say in the Mid-South territory, the Bill Watts territory of Oklahoma and part of Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, uh, yeah, I made it 8 months. I couldn't make it anymore. I said, nope, it's done. I'm gone.
What did you find to be the most reliable vehicles or makes of vehicles?
Well, they were all pretty reliable then. They were built differently. Cars are made now at 3 years, they're ready to go. But a lot of guys didn't buy new cars because they knew that as soon as they bought it, you know, the resale value drops $1,000, $2,000 when you drive it off the lot. So they would get used cars with low mileage and run them till the wheels drop off. That was probably the prevailing mood.
What were some of the most usual cars that wrestlers would go for then? I mean,
Well,
apart
we didn't.
like Lincoln Town cars or anything, like runarounds that you didn't mind breaking.
Well, Lincoln Town cars, that was an expensive car, still is, but you didn't see that, for road cars. I mean, you've seen guys out there on with that car, but it wasn't used regularly. So they would just get a regular car that was used to mile, just a Ford or a Chevy or something, and just run it.
What was the worst car you ever had?
I had a 39 Ford Coupe one time. I wish I had that car today. You know how much that car would be worth?
Mm.
Probably 100 grand. But I had it, and this was years ago, and I knew nothing about cars. I didn't know about working on them and taking care of them or anything. But I didn't use that in wrestling. I only had it for about a year. Then I got rid of it. But it was just the regular cars, the Fords or Chevys, no trucks, no trucks at all. Well, you probably had trucks, but not for the road wear. But it was just the regular models that was offered to the general public, and you would buy one and you'd run it.
Because you mentioned Louisiana before, did you ever get to a point where you like couldn't park a car near the arena if you were a heel, lest they find out which car you were on, burst all the tires and smash all the windows?
Well, not really. Well, I never had that type of heat on me anyway. I did in Puerto Rico, but I didn't drive my own car. But I have heard of guys parking around the corner, or a lot of buildings had the underground parking where you can go underneath the building and where it was pretty safe. But a lot of times when you park close to that building and they knew what car you were in, you'd come out and your windows would be gone, your headlights would be gone, your tires would be flat, whatever. But yeah, fans, and that was just due because of security. They wouldn't pull enough security on your car to protect it. And after a lot of bitching, they finally, changed that where you could park somewhere and they would put a guard on it. But Lawler one time, did I tell you this story when he came out and the guy had the rock right in front of his car? I think I've told you this.
Yeah. I think you told it recently, in fact. Yeah.
Well, that's what they do. They'd mess with you, and I mean, if you didn't have any guards or policemen around there, they could do what they wanted to do because there were too many of them.